The map left her hand before she finished speaking. Sergeant Doyle pulled it clean off the planning table, held it up to the morning light, and laughed. Not a cruel laugh. Worse than that, a patient one. The laugh a man gives a child who is drawn outside the lines. "This," he said, turning the paper so the rest of the team could see it, "is the route our specialist wants us to take." There was a red line on the map, a single line drawn by hand, curving away from the marked trail and dropping into a fold of ground that did not look like much on paper. Wren Calder had drawn it that morning, slowly, with a pencil she kept sharpened with a knife. She had not drawn it to be pretty. She had drawn it because the ground told her to. Doyle traced the official route with one finger, the clean blue line that ran straight along the ridge. "Real terrain isn't one with a nice drawing," he said. "It's one with training, with time on the mountain, things that take years." A few of the men smiled. One looked at his boots. The mountain behind them was already warming, the cold air sliding down off the high rock and pooling around their ankles, carrying the smell of wet pine and old stone. Wren did not reach for the map. She did not raise her voice. She watched Doyle fold her red line in half, then in half again, and slide it into his jacket pocket like a thing already settled. "Copy that," she said. 2 words. Even. The team moved out along the blue line, up onto the ridge, into the open. Within 400 meters, the ground stopped agreeing with the map. The trail Doyle trusted bent, where the paper said it should run straight, and the drainage cut across their path in a way no one had planned for. Doyle did not slow down. He had not noticed yet. Wren had noticed in the first 30 steps. The proof was already under their boots. It would just take the rest of them a while to look down. The drainage forced them off the blue line within the hour. It was not dramatic. That was the thing about real ground. It did not announce its mistakes. The official route simply ran out of trail. Where the map promised a clean shelf along the ridge, the rock fell away into a runnel of loose scree, too steep to cross with packs, too long to climb around without burning the morning. Doyle stopped at the edge of it. He looked at the map, then at the slope, then at the map again, the way men do when they expect the paper to apologize. "Old slide," he said finally. "We go around, north side." North was uphill. North was wind. North was a 40-minute detour that the schedule had not budgeted for. And every man on the team knew it because the radio check with the target element was due in 20. Wren said nothing. She fell in at the back of the column, where a specialist who has been written off is expected to stay, and she watched the way the team moved across ground they did not understand. They were fit. They were fast. They read a map beautifully. They did not read the mountain at all. She had grown up on slopes like this one, on terrain that punished assumption, where a wrong fold of ground could cost you a day or a life. She had learned to look at where water went because water had been solving these mountains for 10,000 years before anyone drew a blue line on them. The runnel they were skirting drained into the exact fold her red line had followed. She had known that at the planning table. She had drawn it because of that. Doyle keyed his radio as they climbed. "Target element, this is lead, comms check." Static answered him. He tried again. The static did not change. And the morning, which had started with a laugh, had stopped being funny somewhere back on that ridge. They just had not admitted it yet. I will say this much, and then I will get out of the way. I have watched plenty of confident men lose a morning to a mountain. The mountain never argues. It just waits for the moment your certainty walks off a ledge. Doyle had that certainty, the kind that mistakes speed for skill. The static on the radio was the first thing that frightened them, and they hit it well. Doyle tried 2 more channels. He sent his second, a lean corporal named Pruitt, up onto a knob of bare rock to chase a signal. Pruitt stood up there with the handset raised over his head like an offering, and the wind took his words and gave back nothing. The target element was supposed to hold a position 1 valley over and wait to be found. That was the whole exercise. Find them, reach them, report. Simple, on paper, but the target element had moved, the way real units move when the planned ground does not match the real ground. And now they were somewhere off the script, and the team meant to find them had just spent 40 minutes climbing the wrong shoulder of the wrong slope. Doyle came down off the knob with his jaw set. He did not look at Wren. He looked at his map and then at his watch, and the watch was winning. One of the men, a broad sergeant named Booker, finally said it out loud. "We're behind." He let that sit. "And we don't have comms." "We have a route," Doyle said. "We had a route," Booker said quietly. "The route ran out an hour ago." That was when the first head turned toward the back of the column. Not Doyle's, Booker's. He looked at the specialist who had not said a word since the planning table, the one whose map was folded up in the sergeant's pocket. And something in his face changed. The small, reluctant arithmetic of a man who is starting to wonder if the quiet person was right. He did not say anything yet. He just looked. And the one witness who could turn this whole morning around had finally started paying attention. Pruitt's radio caught one voice before it died. It was not the target element. It was the control net, the exercise staff, sitting in a vehicle 2 ridges back with the man who would decide whether this morning became a story or a black mark on a file. Colonel Hale. His transmission came through in pieces, the way bad signal cuts a sentence into knives. Lead, control, status on element, requires by 1100. Then nothing. Doyle stood very still. 1100 was 40 minutes out. To make it, they needed to be moving toward the target element right now, on a route that worked, with comms they did not have. The exercise had a hard edge to it that the men understood without being told. A training failure on this scale did not stay on the mountain. It followed you back down. It went into a file. It got read aloud in rooms where careers were decided. You have watched a scene like this turn before. You know the exact second when pride stops being an asset and starts being a cost. If you have ever sat in a room and watched the wrong person get listened to while the right one waited in the back, tell me where that line was for you. Leave it in the comments, because this story lives right on top of it. Doyle turned around. For the first time all morning, he looked at Wren directly. "You drew a route," he said. It was not a question, and it was not an apology. It was a man being forced toward a door he did not want to open. Wren met his eyes. She did not gloat. She did not hesitate. She had been ready since the planning table. "I drew the route the water drew first," she said. "Your element didn't hold position. They moved to dry ground, same as I would. Same as the mountain told them to." She nodded down the slope, into the fold of ground everyone had laughed at. They're down there, and the way to them runs through my red line." Doyle's hand went to his jacket pocket, where the folded map had been sitting all morning, quiet as a verdict. He had not opened it yet, but the whole team was watching his hand now. Doyle did not open the map. Not yet. Pride is slow that way. "Show me," he said instead, and handed it back to her folded, as if returning it on his terms cost him less than admitting he had been wrong to take it. Wren opened it herself. She laid it flat on a slab of cold granite, weighted 2 corners with stones, and pressed the crease out with the flat of her hand. The red line ran clean and certain across the paper, down off the ridge, into the fold, and out the far side toward a low saddle the official route had ignored completely. The team gathered without being told. Even Booker, even Pruitt, who came down off the rock with his dead radio and crouched at the edge of the circle. I have very little patience for people who confuse quiet with weakness. Wren had been quiet all morning, and every silent minute of it had been her being right while the loud men were being fast. There is a difference, and a mountain will teach it to you for free if you let it. She did not lecture them. She pointed. Here's where they'd have lost the planned ground. Her finger moved. Here's where dry footing pulls them. Here's the only line into that saddle that doesn't expose them to the wind. 3 points. No theory. Just the ground, read the way you read a face you have known your whole life. Doyle looked at the slope, then at the line, then at the slope again. This time the paper did not need to apologize. This time he did. He did not say, "Sorry." Men like Doyle rarely manage the word, but he straightened up, looked at his team, and gave the only apology he had. "We move on her route," he said. "She's on point." The next block was where competence stopped whispering. On point, Wren moved differently than the rest of them, and the team saw it within the first 100 meters. She did not march. She read. Her eyes ran the ground 3 steps ahead, the way a fast reader runs a line of text, taking the whole shape of it at once, not spelling out each letter. Where the slope offered 2 ways down, she did not stop to think. She already knew which one held footing, because she had read it from the way the grass leaned and the soil darkened where water had passed. If you want to know the difference between training and instinct, watch her hands. They never grabbed for balance. They stayed loose, easy, certain, while behind her men twice her size skidded and caught themselves on rock. The fold of ground swallowed them. From the ridge it had looked like nothing. A shadow, a wrinkle. Inside it was a clean corridor of solid footing, sheltered from the wind, exactly as the red line had promised. Cordite and pine and cold, wet stone. The temperature dropped as they descended into it, and somewhere ahead, faint, came a sound that was not wind. A whistle. 2 short, 1 long. A recognition signal. Wren stopped, raised a closed fist. The team froze behind her. She answered it, 2 short, 1 long. And from somewhere down in the fold, a voice called back, ragged with relief. The target element. Found. Doyle came up beside her, breathing hard, and for a moment he just stared down the corridor of ground he would have walked his whole team straight past. How did you—" he started. "The map," Wren said. "You've had it in your pocket all morning." She had not even shown him the last part of it yet. The target element was 4 men, cold, intact, and exactly where Wren's line said they would be. Their lead, A wiry sergeant who had been holding the saddle since dawn took one look at the team coming down the impossible corridor and shook his head. "We moved off the planned ground at first light," he said. "Footing was bad. We pulled to the dry saddle. Figured nobody would find us till the exercise timed out." "She found you in one read," Booker said. He was not smiling. He said it the way a man states a fact he intends to repeat later to the right people. Wren crouched, opened the map again on her knee, and turned it so the target lid could see. The red line ran straight to the spot they were standing on. Not close. Exact. The kind of exact that does not happen by luck. The kind that makes a hard man go quiet because he is doing the math on what it means. "You drew this before you left the start point," the target lead said slowly. "This morning," Wren said. At the table, Doyle was standing a little apart from all of it, and you could see the cost arriving on his face in installments. The route was real. The find was real. The map he had folded into his pocket and laughed at was real. And there was still one piece left. Because the exercise was not over until Control heard about it, and Control was Colonel Hale, waiting 2 ridges back with a file and a deadline. They had the element. They had the route. They did not yet have the radio. But they had something better now, and they were carrying it back uphill toward the one man who could read it aloud. They climbed back up toward Control with the target element in tow. And somewhere on that climb, Doyle started rebuilding his version of events. I have heard men do this before, and it never ages well. The story starts to bend before they even reach the room. It was a team effort. We adapted. We made the call. The word "we" does a lot of heavy lifting in a man's mouth when he is about to walk into a place where someone might ask whose call it actually was. By the time they crested the last shoulder of the ridge and saw the control vehicle, Doyle had the speech half-built. He even quickened his pace to get to the front of the column, to be the one who arrived first. Because arriving first is the oldest trick for owning a thing you did not do. Colonel Hale was standing beside the vehicle with a clipboard and the flat, unreadable patience of a man who had been doing this for 30 years. He watched the team come in. He counted heads. He saw the target element, found and whole, and something in his shoulders eased a fraction. "Lead," Hale said. "You're inside the window. Barely. Report." Doyle stepped up. "Sir, we hit a route failure early. Old slide took out the planned line. Team adapted, pushed a secondary route into the lower ground, recovered the element." He paused. "Good work all around, sir." Hale nodded slowly. Then his eyes moved past Doyle, to the back of the group, to the specialist who had said nothing and was holding a folded map against her leg. "Secondary route," Hale repeated. "Whose?" The question landed in the cold air and sat there. And the next mistake was about to be worse because this time everyone was watching. "Whose route, Sergeant?" Hale asked again. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Doyle's mouth opened, closed. The word "we" had run out of road. It was Booker who broke it. He stepped forward, not angry, just done carrying it. "Hers, sir," he nodded at Wren. "She drew it at the planning table this morning, marked the exact fold the element pulled into." Sergeant Doyle had the map in his pocket the whole time. Hale turned. "Specialist, the map." Wren stepped forward and opened it on the hood of the control vehicle, smoothing the crease one last time. The red line lay there in the cold light. down off the ridge, through the fold, into the saddle. Hale set his own master map beside it, the exercise grid, the actual recovered position of the target element, logged by control at first light when they moved. He looked from one to the other. The red line and the logged position were the same point, drawn hours before anyone could have known. Hale was quiet for a long moment. Then he read it aloud, for the record, for the team, for the man standing very still beside him. Marked route, planning phase. Predicted element displacement to dry ground. Confirmed accurate. He looked up. You read that off the terrain. This morning, before we moved. Yes, sir. And it was set aside. He did not look at Doyle when he said it. He did not have to. The whole team was already looking, and Doyle was already smaller than he had been at the table when a hand-drawn line had been something to laugh at. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the kind where the right call finally gets read into the record out loud, then keep this channel alive through the pinned comment, because the next one only happens if you do. The room had recalculated. It would not be calculating back. The guitars was not loud. The best ones never are. Hale folded Wren's map carefully. Not the way Doyle had folded it, dismissively into a pocket, but along its own creases, the way you handle a document that is going into a record. He held it for a moment. Then he looked at Doyle. Sergeant, you had the correct route in your pocket for the entire exercise. Yes, sir. Doyle's voice had lost all its mourning. You'll note that in your after-action. All of it. Hale let that sit. Including the part where your specialist was right at the table and you laughed. The team did not smile. There is a kind of silence among men who have just watched someone learn an expensive lesson in public, and it is not satisfaction exactly. It is recognition. Every one of them had skidded on ground Wren had walked clean. Every one of them had counted on a blue line while she read the mountain itself. I do not admire cruelty dressed up as confidence. But I will admit, there is something clean about watching a room sort itself out. About the moment the loudest voice goes quiet, and the quiet one does not have to say a word, because the ground already said it for her. Wren did not gloat. She had not gloated all day. She took her map back from the colonel when he offered it, folded along the right creases now, and slid it into her own jacket. The same pocket it had been ripped out of that morning, returned to its rightful owner. That was the whole reversal. Right there, in a fold of paper changing hands. By the next beat, even the loudest man in the room wanted silence. The exercise was logged a success. Barely, within the window. But that is not the part anyone carried down the mountain. What they carried down was the image of a folded map going into a colonel's record with one hand-drawn red line on it, and a sergeant's after-action sitting beside it with a harder sentence to write. Hale made sure of that. Before the team dispersed, he turned to Wren one last time, and in front of all of them, the elite team, the target element, the man who had laughed at the planning table, he came to attention and held it. A full salute. Held a beat too long to be routine. Held long enough to be the record itself. Wren returned it. Clean. Even. The way she had said, "Copy that," at dawn, when a map had just left her hand to a man's laughter. She did not give a speech. She did not need one. The mountain had given the speech for her at 400 meters, when the official route ran out of ground, and every man who had laughed at a red line had spent the rest of the morning walking proof of how wrong they had been. Some lessons arrive wearing rank. This one arrived carrying a pencil and a folded map, and it read the mountain better than all of them. The blue line is in a drawer somewhere now. The red one is in the record. That is usually how it goes, when the quiet one was right the whole time.